We're going to have a test tomorrow. That would be Wednesday the 13th. There's going to be 14 multiple choice questions on slope and writing equations of lines. The problems that we're going to do in these next two videos are going to help you a ton with the stuff that you're going to see on that test. So you can use this video or any other video from this channel or anywhere on Teams from the YouTube page to assist you with this test. So the first thing we're going to do is find the slope of the line by counting. So it's going to be just like this on the test. They're going to give you a line. You have to count to find the slope, and then there's going to be multiple choice options where you're going to pick one of them. Notice how this line is going uphill. So we know the slope is positive. Now when you go to count the slope, we're going to count the rise and the run. So remember, that's what slope is, rise over run. So from this point to this point, how far up do you go? How far to the right do you go? We're going to count up 2 units. And we're going to count to the right 4 units. So our slope, the rise would be 2, and the run would be 4. On the multiple choice test tomorrow, this is not going to be an option because 2/4 needs reduced to 1/2. That's the slope of the line, positive 1/2. Number 2, same type of deal. Find the slope of the line by counting. The only reason I'm doing another example like this with you is because notice how this line goes downhill. So we know that the slope is negative. And you could put the negative out in front, up top, down below, wherever you like. To find the slope of this line, we're going to count down. This would be our rise. And since we're counting down, that rise is going to be negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to count the run. We're going to the right, so that would be positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's your slope, negative 4, 6. Now, unfortunately, that needs reduced as well, so this is not going to be the answer on the multiple choice test. You need to know how to reduce fractions. 2 goes into both. That's the slope of this line, negative 2/3. Now, another thing you're going to have to do on the test tomorrow is you're going to be given a graph, and you have to come up with the equation of the line. So the equation of the line, everybody knows, is y equals mx plus b. Well, we already know the m, that's the slope. So the equation of this line is y equals 1/2 x plus something. That's what this b is. The b is your y-intercept. So look at your graph. Where does the line cross the y-axis? It crosses at 0. So the equation of your line would be y equals 1/2 x plus 0. Now, 1/2 x plus 0 is the same thing as 1/2 x. You don't need to write the plus 0, so if this was a multiple choice test, you're probably not going to see the plus 0 on there. That's your answer. Now, if this is multiple choice, you can use this to your advantage. Obviously, you know the slope is positive, so make sure this number in front of that x is positive. The y-intercept is clearly 0. If that doesn't appear there, this means the same thing. If there's nothing added there, the y-intercept is 0. Let's do the same thing over here. Now remember, this is going to be multiple choice. So we know our answer is going to be y equals mx plus a number. You know the slope is negative. So this number in front of here must be negative. Use that to your advantage on the multiple choice. Now we already counted it, so we know it's negative 2/3. The y-intercept, that's where the line crosses the y-axis, is right there. Notice how that's 1 unit below the origin. You can also find slope by using a formula. If you have two ordered pairs, if you wanted to plot them and count, you could. But you could also use the slope formula. So slope formula, subtract the y's, that's your rise. Subtract the x's, that's your run. The y values live there. So we're going to subtract our y's. We'll do, it says do y sub 2 minus y sub 1, but if you wanted to do it in this order, you could as well, as long as you do the x's in the same order. So we'll do 3 minus negative 6. The x values are the other numbers. Make sure you go in the same order. If this was the y that you chose to put first, make sure that's the x that you put first. So the x's are negative 2 and 5. You can write those down in that order. And then just simplify. 3 minus negative 6. That's like 3 plus 6. Negative 2 minus 5. That's like, well, negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7. Nothing really to simplify there. That's your slope. And we found it by using the formula. So your two ways to find slope would be to count like we did up here, or to use the formula. It's up to you which way to do it. If you have a graph, counting is easier. If you have two ordered pairs, using the slope is probably easiest. All you're doing is subtracting and dividing. Okay, moving on to the next section, parallel, perpendicular, or neither. How can you tell if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or have neither of those relationships? Well, you can tell by looking at the slopes. So here's a good example. If you have the slope of line 1 is 3 and the slope of line 2 is 3, I know that these lines are parallel. And the symbol for that looks like this. How do I know they're parallel? Slopes of parallel lines are the same. When they're the same, the lines are parallel. Here's two slopes. They are not the same. Notice how 7 halves, if you flip it, you get 2 7ths. That's positive, that's negative. These are called opposites because one's positive and one's negative, and they're also reciprocals because you flip the fraction. That's what perpendicular lines look like. And the symbol for that looks like this. Last example, 4 and 1/4. They're not the same, so you know it's not parallel. Are they perpendicular? The answer would be no, because that's positive and that's positive as well. You need one to be positive, one to be negative. They are reciprocals though. 4 over 1 and 1 over 4, they are reciprocals. But this is neither. All this really means is these two lines that have these slopes are going to touch each other, but they're not going to touch at a right angle. Okay, so here's some examples of this, and we've done plenty of this in the homework. So if the example that I do here isn't enough for you, you can go back to the other YouTube videos where we talked about lines that are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So the idea is find the slope of line AB, find the slope of line CD. Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So once you have these slopes, then you compare them. So it's really like combining this problem and this problem together. So let's find the slope of line AB first. We're going to subtract the y values. I'll do 0 minus 5. Then I'm going to subtract the x values. 5 minus 0. 0 minus 5 gives me a negative 5, and 5 minus 0 gives me 5. That needs reduced. That's the slope of line AB. Find the slope of line CD. So you're doing the same exact thing. Take your y values, 1 minus 2. Take your x values, 4 minus 3. 1 minus 2 gives you negative 1, and 4 minus 3 gives you positive 1. These are both negative. They are reciprocals as well, okay, but these are exactly the same. Negative 1 over 1, negative 1 over 1. So if they're exactly the same, these lines are parallel. What you need to watch in a situation like this is, if this was positive and this was negative, these would still be reciprocals, because 1 over 1, when you flip it, is still 1 over 1. So this is an example of what it looks like when lines are parallel. I suggest going back to YouTube videos when we talk about parallel, perpendicular, and neither, and maybe look at a couple more of these just so you're comfortable. There's probably going to be one of each on the test, just so you know.